Good morning, Rabbi Isai. We're starting out with a little of Agadata, and then we're moving on to a lot of different animal parts. We're going to learn about them in great detail, from head to toe, literally. Omer Rav Chizda, like 12 lines from the bottom, maybe more, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 lines from the bottom. Eizu Talmud Chacham. Who is considered a Talmud Chacham? A Talmud Chacham, says Tosfos, is a person who... No? Isn't that where we're holding? Yes. You hear? Nachman? Who's a Talmud Chacham? A person who that doesn't have to give simanim when he loses something. He does tfiyas ayin. I recognize this thing, it's mine. Zaroya treifa la'atzmai. A person sees his own animal, and he looks at it and he says, this is a treifa. Instead of trying to be meir heter and coming up with every type of heter in the world to eat it, he says, no, I'm going to be machmer, I'm not going to eat this. That's the Talmud Chacham. What does it mean, I hate gifts? He says that this animal is a treifa, I'm not going to eat it. So he had a gift, he could have taken it for himself. No. Anybody that learns Chumash, Shnai Mikra, understands it well. V'shoyna, he learns Mishnayos. V'roya treifa la'atzmo, and he looks at his own animal. He says, "This is treifa, I'm not eating it." V'shimish Talmidei Chachamim, he went ahead and he served Talmidei Chachamim. The Gemara constantly talks about there's something learning from a book. There's something doing physical shimush to a Talmud Chacham. The hard work from your physical hands, you're going to eat. Ashrecha v'toiv lach. Rav Zvid Omar, what? There's a good Gishmaki song for this. Rav Zvid Omar, Zoiche v'noichel shnei oilamos. You get two worlds. Ha'olam hazeh v'ha'olam haba. Ashrecha b'olam hazeh v'toiv lach la'olam haba. Rebbe Elazar ki have mishadri le mi be'nesiyah midi lo yishakal. When the Nasi of Klal Yisrael, also a wealthy person, would send him like a gift, he wouldn't take the gift. And when they invited him for a meal, he wouldn't go. Again, like you don't want me to live? I don't understand. You're trying to kill me here? If you hate gifts, you live. If you take gifts, it seems like you don't live as long. Says Gemara Bzeira ki mishadri leili shakil. When they sent him a gift, he wouldn't accept it. A nice golden bottle of wine, a nice silver cup to drink from. They wouldn't take it. Kavim Mizana, Sefer Torah, that's different. That's for the tzibur. It's pasha for the tzibur, I'm taking it. Kavim Mizana le'yazal. Kavim Mizana le'yazal. But when they would invite him, he would go. Rabbi say, imagine if the Chavetz Chaim ate in your house. Is that a schus for him or a schus for you? I mean, who wins over here? The Gal Adar sits in your house. You're a chassid and the Rebbe eats in your house. The Admar comes to visit you and eats a little Shabbos by you. Who benefited here? You or the Rebbe? You! Omar! They have covered by the fact that the Hana is there is not mine. Omar Rav Yehuda Omar Rav. Okay, so here we go, Rabbi Isai. We're going back into Chullin. Hands on. Omer Avid Omer Rav Nikva Kenapa Mitzdarfim Leruba. So we were discussing the trachea, the kana, the windpipe. So we know that if it's open roiv, more than 50%, it's treif. Now what if it's not open like this? It has tiny little holes in it, like this, let's say. Little tiny holes. These are pictures from the Kol Lashon. So, how do you decide if it's a roiv or not? Says the Gemara, Mitzdarfim Leruba. You take all the little holes, all the air, and you combine them together. You do a calculation. How much if you put all the little holes together? You don't
holes like that. Like what's that?
I don't know why. A worm ate from it, or I don't know. Now it depends. If a worm ate from it, then it would be chaser. So the Gemara is going to discuss, and the Gemara is going to say at the end that it's not chaser. It's like somebody took a needle and poked it, but nothing's missing physically. It weighs the same. It has the same amount of flesh, just punctured in, pushed in. like a matzah. A guy took a matzah thing over its neck. It, I don't know what, it was grazing and a bunch of thorns got it in the kana. So, if you also take the piece of meat in between the holes, let's assume we're just looking at the holes themselves, all the holes together, if it's 51% of the circumference of the kana, then it's treif. So I couldn't put the picture in because I didn't have my phone. But Akopanim, there's a picture, maybe the editors will throw it in there. So this is the Gilgoilis we're talking about. It's interesting, they use the thing of an animal. So it says if it has a long stretch, a cut like that, or little tiny holes like this, but say you get the idea. If it has a bunch of holes that together, it's the size of Isser, so it doesn't give off Tumah, but it's not an animal skull, it's a human skull. Oh, fine, maybe just not. Now we know a skull without any other bones creates Tumah of oil. Now if it's missing a part of the skull, then it doesn't give Tumah. How much is it missing? Either a long cut in it, or even it has like a bunch of small holes. There's a shear called magdeach, like a old-fashioned drill bit. Whatever the shear is, and it's on the bottom, the whole thing, 3 millimeters, whatever it is. So if all the holes together have the shear of a drill bit, then it's not a real skull, and it doesn't give off the tumah like a skull. But it mentions here a shear of a magdeach. Now, almo kivin the shear meloy magdeach. The meloy magdeach is darfin. You put it all together to see if it's the size of a drill bit. So as the Gemara Chanami kivin the shiura ki isar li isim is darfin. Over here the shear is here. This is an isar. Let's say pretend this is an isar. It's a type of a coin. Put all the holes together and see if it adds up to this coin. What are you telling me, Roiv? What does Roiv have to do here? There's a shear. Says the Gemara, you're asking the question because you simply forgot something. You forgot what Rav says. That what? It depends. There's a difference. Check this out. Beautiful picture from the Kal HaLashon. If you actually remove the flesh, so then you add up all the little circles, or whatever they are, and see if they add up to this Isser coin. But we're not talking about that. But over here is just a puncture. The flesh is still there. Nothing was removed. Mitzvah from Laruba, then you do a Raiv. Amar Rabbi Bar Bachan Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi Nitlahe Menu Ritzua Mitzarefes Liki Isser. Now, if we're missing, this is just the other picture of the Ki'isr, you take all the little pieces that are missing, see if it has a hole that size. So here we have a windpipe that has Nitla Himena Ritzua, a whole stretch of it is missing. Mitzarefes L'Gisr, even though it's, let's say, square, you take the whole surface area and see how much is missing. If it's the size of a coin, then we do it together and we say it's the size of a coin and it's treif. Nikva Kenapa Mao has a bunch of holes like a sieve Mao. So we just said, if they're missing, literally took the flesh out, the worm ate it, so mitzvah from the kisser, then the shear is the size of a coin. This is super interesting. Regarding a bird, what's the halacha? Because a bird, this kisser is way too large for a bird. So, its whole pipe is the size of half a pencil. How are you going to use this isser? Isser is on something this size, you can do an isser. You have this guy, this is like a real animal thing. So isser makes sense, but not on a bird. So says the Gemara, what do you do? I heard this from Elazar. You fold it up and you put it on the opening of the trachea. If it fits in the opening of the kana trachea. Now I'm going to show you what it is live. Imagine you have a bunch of holes in this trachea right over here. So what do you do? Says the Gemara, and this is the trachea of a bird, okay? And ostrich doesn't even have this size. Okay, so what you do is you go like this. So now I took it out. I took the whole part with the holes is out. Now I take this. This is what I drilled out. This is what I cut out. And then you take this piece and you see if it fits in this corner like this. If it's roiv or not. Is this roiv? What do you guys say? It's not a roiv. No way is this a roiv. It's not 51%.
Surface area or by radius?
Does it fill up? Does it not the radius? Surface. Yeah. Does it fill up the surface? I don't see it filling up. I took this piece from here. This is where I had all my little holes. I cut them out. And now I'm going to see if it fills up this gap. And that's how I decide by a bird. Because I don't have an isser. Great. That's very clear. Oh. So let's see inside. Mekaploi. Basically, you cut it out. You fold it over. The point is, and you put it in the opening of the trachea. If it fills up most of this opening, then it's a treifa. So anyways, this is like the seed that what? This is like the kana. This is like the trachea. And you put that thing in the opening. To remember, you put it in the opening. Or other people can remember the way Stefansky did with the drill in the middle of the shear. Fine. I'm not going to do this again. I did it last night. Let me see if I can find it. No, not this one. This one. Oh, here. Check this out. You see, it's closed. Oh, it was really hard. I don't know why. It was hard for me to cut. But if you have an opening like this in the trachea, but it closes. It's only cut on 3 sides, so it actually could close a little bit. So what's the halacha? Not like a soda machine that you open this up, or in Chicago, I don't even know if they still use that word, pop machine. Not like this way, but flat. Not this way. You have to see how much surface area this takes up. If it's the size of a isser, then it's treif. Nizdika, what if it has a slit down the length of it? Now the interesting thing about a slit down the length, if you think about it, what's easier for an animal to heal from? A slit like this or a slit like on the screen down the length? What's easier to heal? Huh? Not straight? So no. This is harder to heal. Think about it. Every time the animal bends its neck down, it pops open. It just keeps on popping open and closed. So it'll never get a chance to heal. But when it's down the length, every time it bends down, it's actually closing. It closes. The tension closes it up. So memela, that's why we're very makel with a long a cut down the length. So when you read it, chuya means a single ring. But Rashi says no, a chuya over here means, according to the pshat that he prefers, it means 3 rings. So if you look in our Gemara, it doesn't even say 2 pshat, it just says chuya, 3 rings. That's it. No notes. 3 rings. Why 3 rings? Says Rashi, when you do tzitzis, we learned you have to do a chuya. Chuya means you go around 3 times. Chuya not. That's the basics. So the a chuya means 3. So Mela over here also means 3 rings. And so they said this over to Rabbi Yochanan. What are you talking about the Kamarav? What is he talking about chuyas? Why do you need any rings? We're not concerned about a cut down the length of the trachea. As long as there's a tiny bit at the end, well, both ends, then we're good. You don't need rings. They said over to Rabbi Yochanan, you know, Rabbi Yochanan said the same thing like you. But what? I didn't know that in Bavel they know how to learn like that. Wow, very impressed. Imagine a giraffe. The entire neck is kosher for shchita. You're allowed to do shchita on the whole neck area of a cow. So if this is our cow, the entire neck. Just, what's the problem? Now that is a little problematic Tabas Agdoila, let's just remember, if this is Tabas Agdoila is the last ring, basically, and it's called Agdoila because it's larger and it goes around and around in circumference. It's all cartilage material around and around. Oh, I got a good picture here from Reb Weisfish. Gewaltige picture. Here it is. You see the cartilage all in a complete circle. You could actually see, I believe those are the chiti, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, that's a nice tabas agdoila. So from that area all the way to the lungs. But where in the lungs? Listen to this. Tachtoina. How could that be? You go to the bottom of the lung? So the Gemara explains right away. No, the bottom, which is the upper one. What does that mean? So what? Here, let's just explain what he's saying. This is the lung. So it means the upper part of the lung. You could cut that trachea pipe to the first when you blow it up like a balloon, and it's obviously going to spread everywhere. So the first lobe, up to the first lobe. So why are you calling it tachtoina? The answer is because usually after you shecht an animal, what do you do to it? You hang it upside down. So when you're looking now, the tachtoina, the tachtoina now is the elyoina. You're allowed to shecht from the bottom of the picture upwards till that. This is called tachtoina. And we're going to do this another time also. If the guy knows what he's doing, so he wouldn't shecht. Elamai, he shechted already. Now I want to check it. It's up there. What does it mean? Normal action that an animal takes. He constantly moves its neck up and down, up and down. So all that part of the neck that goes up and down while it's alive, it's mutter for shchita. Don't give it a nice yank and then shecht. Normal movement. In other words, don't pull out pipe from its lung and start shechting down there. Whatever is within the neck area of a normal motion, that's what you're allowed to shecht. What if it itself, today, in the shlachtos, they really pull that neck very unnaturally. So obviously they're not going to shecht all the way at the ends. It's just the center part is mamish there for the shechting. But let's say it did it to itself. It moved its neck in a crazy way. It was trying to lick something off its back. And it started like pulling its neck. And then the guy goes, and he shechts it all the way on the, got its knife all the way in the bottom, next to the lungs. Is that okay? Teiku. What do we do in all the sugi? Rashi keeps on saying, Teiku means we got to be machmer. You can't eat from this meat. Yosef, Teiku means we got to wait until Mashiach. But right now, what do? You don't eat. Yosef, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Nofak, Nilsim, Vinayu, they came up with the halacha. Onas b'simonim v'shochat. If he forced the simonim lower down, he forced them out of their place, so to speak, he pulled them out more. Psuli, you're not allowed to shechter. What if the trachea got punctured lower down by the, let's say, closer, very close to the lung? Nidan kireya. Then it has a halacha like a lung. And what's the halacha by a lung? If there's a puncture wound of a mashu in a lung, then it is treif. So too, in this trachea, that part of the trachea is also like a lung, and a mashu is treif. Tanur Rabbanon, we're mamish moving from thing to thing. It's unbelievable. Ezu chaza. We're talking about a shlamim. You give a shlamim. You have to give, when you bring a shlamim, you get to eat it, but you have to first give a gift to the kain. Now, this is not a cheap gift. Realizing now, this is a pretty nice gift that you have to give the kain before you can eat anything. You have to give the chaza, the breast of this animal. What does it mean? Za'arayas hakarka. The one facing the ground. From where to where? Lemata adatzaver, all the way to the neck. Lemala, up until the keres, until the stomach. What does that mean? So, Nachmal, here it is. Here's the picture. That whole red area is facing the ground. We're going up is on the picture to the left. Down is towards the neck. Why is it like that? Yoshi wasn't around, so we did it ourselves. Dave did it last night. I just added the thing. Up is the left arrow, is the red arrow. Down is the blue arrow. In other words, when the animal's hanging upside down, Yoshi would have done a lot nicer. So now the keres is up, and the neck is down because it's hanging upside down. Also, let's go back to the picture, not get dizzy here. The blue area over there is the first rib. So Rashi holds they take one rib from each side, from the right and left. So that's called shteit slice. According to Tosfos, it's two on each side. You go two down. This is what we give a kohen. Next sugya. It says in the Mishnah, nikav krum shel moyach. If you punctured the membrane around the brain, that's a treifa. Rabbi Shmuel Damer Tervayu, kroma ilah. There are two membranes. Now the problem is, it's difficult to even see the membrane around the brain. Here's a great picture from Kol HaLashon. So you can see on the left, that's one membrane. You see that folded piece of skin? That's a membrane. This is the membrane around the brain. Now, why is it so difficult? Because it's clear. It's like a little plastic bag, a very, very thin layer of plastic, so to speak, grabbing the entire brain, puts it in its place. So it's pila abriya, how everything works. That brain, central nervous system, it gives it seichel, whatever, the whole thing, and it's protected by a little bag. If it has one tiny little puncture in that bag, Shalma Yisrael, maybe. The question is, which bag are we talking about? The one that's closer to the skull on the left, the folded piece of skin, which is the thicker and it's very easy to see, or the very thin one? Rabbi Shmuel Damer Tervayu, kroma ilah. If you punctured right through the skull into that thick piece of skin, that membrane, even though you didn't get to the lower membrane, you made this animal treif. No, you need to puncture the bottom one in order to make it a treifa. This bag that the brain is in it. So that's the bottom, that's the lower one, that's the thinner one, the one that's hard to discern. You should know that the beitzim also have two membranes. Besides the outer pouch, there's two membranes. Here's the outer membrane, and here's the inner one. The inner one is it's like almost colorful. So you can see in a second, here's a Weissfish showing you the difference between the outer and the inner. The people that eat this stuff, they're mamish into it, whatever. So, versus the brain, by the way, I'm just going back to the beitzim, the brain is very hard to discern. That's what the Gemara is trying to say. That has different colors, so it's easy. The brain, it's very hard to see through. But in the brain itself, everything that's inside the skull is a brain. But if it's closer to the body, it's in the spine area, that's already like the Chut HaShadra. So what's the difference? Brain, what's the halacha of brain? How much do you have to puncture from the brain in order to make it treif? A mashu, a needle. But the spine is a roiv. You need 51% of the circumference of the spine, of the chut, not the spine. We're talking about the Chut HaShadra, which is the spinal cord. Because we don't care so much about the spine. The spine is not a big deal. People break vertebrae, it's not a big deal. When we were talking about the blue part, the Chut HaShadra. So, where does the brain end, or let's call it, where does the skull end and the spine begins, the spinal cord begins? I wrote here in my Gemara that I was in Poland when I learned this Gemara. I don't know what I have to do. I have to check it out in the shir. But I call upon him. There's two Poland here. Beautiful. Another from Kol HaLashon. These are two guys right over here at the entrance to the skull. From that point on you could even see they show you where the spinal cord is. Here, you see that? There's an arrow. Spinal cord. That's where the spinal cord begins, and that's where. So he says like this. Mina poilin v'lifnim. From those poilin, those two guys into the skull is all considered brain. Treif b'mashu. Mina poilin v'lachotz kilachotz. But anything from the other side is a Chut HaShadra, and you need a roiv. What about the actual two guys themselves here? What about the Chut HaShadra that's in between those two things? What's the halacha? Any idea? I really don't know. Says the Gemara, mistaber kilafnim, and that's the halacha. It's like the brain. You have to be machmir and say even kimashu. Rabbi Yirmiyah, balak ba'if of ashkach kimin shnei poilim, he actually found in a chicken that also has these shnei poilim coming out of its brain. Munachim al pi agdera mamish there, right there by the entrance to the skull. Nikav alev lebeis chalol. It says in the Mishnah, if the heart was punctured all the way to the chamber inside. Check this picture out from Weisfish. Unbelievable. He was supposed to come. I was touched that all these people want to drive in from England, from here. I hope to see them. I call upon him. There's two chambers. He took a heart, chopped it in half. I hope you're not queasy. This is the larger chamber, this is the smaller chamber. Which chamber gets punctured? Says Gemara, Mamish looks appetizing. What's the question? Me like nan, Rabbi Shimon Oimer, in our Mishnah, it talks about a heart and it talks about lungs. Guess what? Look at this. What a beautiful picture. This is the lungs. This is the main kana that goes into the lungs. Then it branches off. Dr. Epstein, what are those branches called?
Bronchi.
Bronchi. Gewaldig. Bronchi. Says Rav. No, I'm serious. If you're learning this and you're 100 years ago, what's going on here? I don't know what you're talking about. But now we understand. There's the giant main pipe that brings in oxygen into the lungs. Then you have all these, it almost looks like a root system over here. Those are the smaller ones. No, what I'm looking for is a puncture in the main one. So the Gemara wants to understand that just like in the same, since they're both brought in the same Mishnah, and when it comes to the lung, we're talking about the main pipe. So when it comes to the heart, we're talking about the main chamber, not a side chamber, not the smaller chamber. Says the Gemara, what's the raya? So what's the connection? It says in plural. The pipe that all pipes lead to. That's only one pipe. But it says in singular. It says to the cavity, not a chamber. Cavity. What difference does it make? What cavity? Cavity is a cavity. Memela, it doesn't matter if it's on the right or the left, small, large. If you puncture into a cavity, you made a treif. Kinei alev. So the artery coming out of the heart, something like this. Rav Amar B'Mashu Ushmuel Amar Berubai. A small little puncture wound in there makes it possible. Shmuel says you need most of the circumference. Hey Niu Kinei alev. What is this? This is the fat that's on the walls. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. How could you puncture fat in a wall? Who cares about the fat? Why would that make an animal treif? So the Gemara says, no, you didn't understand. If you look closely on this picture, you can see fat all the way around the trachea as it enters the lung. Yeah, all this is fat. So what it means is the pipe that has that fat on it. That if you have a little puncture wound, that's matrifit. There are three pipes. Rashi says something interesting, and everybody struggles to understand what Rashi is saying. They're saying that's not the Metzias. He says there are three pipes that come out of the heart, from the trachea. Three pipes that come out from the trachea. One, he says, Chad Parshal Liba, Chad Parshal Reya, Chad Parshal Kavda. One goes to the heart, one goes to the lung, and one goes to the liver. So they say no. What Rashi meant to say is there's three major arteries. One is the aorta, how do you pronounce it? Aorta. And the vena cava, whatever it's called, Bechulu. Pulmonary artery. Kitzur, there's three major arteries. One really goes through the liver, one goes through the heart, and one goes through the lungs. So what's the nafkamina to us? Why do we have to know this? He says the reya kareya, any pipe. This pipe that goes through the lung, we have to treat it like a lung. Just like a lung, a small puncture wound makes it a mashu, makes it treif. So when you look at the pipe, also a mashu makes it treif. The kavda, but we know what makes a liver treif. When you remove the entire thing, if anything remains of the liver, it regenerates, so it doesn't make it treif. So too, whatever that pipe is that's going through the liver, you have to remove the whole thing in order to make it treif. The kavda, the liba pligi. But when it comes to the heart, we have a machlok, is it mashu or roiv? Rav is going to say mashu, Shmuel is going to say roiv. Mar baruch masni ibcha. And Marvachia says the opposite. The reya, he mixes this up a little bit. The lung is like the liver, and you have to get rid of the whole thing in order to make it treif. The kavda kareya, but the liver is like the lung, then a mashu is treif. The liver pligi, that I'll give you that in the heart, Rav says a mashu and Shmuel says a roiv. So he said over what Rav holds in the heart, that even a mashu makes it treif. If that's what he said, he doesn't know anything about treifas. Now, it's interesting to point out that the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that Rav wanted to know what a mum oiver is, what a not a mum oiver. He parked himself in a barn for 18 months. You can learn a lot from this. He went into a barn, lived in a barn for not a day. Some of us would do it for 10, 15 minutes, max. He got a bed, got himself some food, and a Gemara, and a lamp, and lived in a barn, 18 months, to understand what a mum is, what not a mum is, just to be the mumcha. And he says, if you think that that's a treifa, you don't know anything about treifas. I'm just saying, there's not a person that stam, it was all his whole life in a mismarriage doesn't know what treifas. He lived in a barn. You don't know anything about treifas, says Shmuel. Well, I think we do pass connection.
Right, exactly.
Shmuel's a doctor, okay, yeah. Nishma Shidra, let's keep on going. We have 4 minutes. So now we're going back to the spinal cord, which transfers all the nerve system in the body. It's a very important piece of equipment. It's very deathable if you you have to cut a majority of it. I'm not a doctor. If I had a guess, if you asked me, I would say a little puncture in a spinal cord, bye-bye. No more walking, I don't know what. He says no.
That's what a lumbar puncture is.
Who? What?
You do a lumbar puncture to check somebody, make a hole in the spinal cord.
Through the nerve system? Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want you to be my doctor. And they said that Allah is like Rabbi Yaakov, that even a mashu. Ravuna says Ravuna, ain't Allah Rabbi Yaakov. It's not true. You could puncture, like Ari says, it has to be a roiv. But what's a roiv? There's 2 ways to look at it. The circumference, the skin that holds everything in place, or the inside nerve system. Is it the inside, the nerve tissue inside, or it's the outside? The inside, because the inside seems like could heal. The outside, once that's cut, then the animal is a bye-bye. It's a goner. But if you say that the outside skin, most of the outside skin was ruptured, what about the inside if you messed up the inside? Tashma Doma Nivli, and I looked this up, it's the only time in Shas that he's brought down. Omer Avuna, Roiv means the outside skin. I couldn't care less about the nerve system inside. That doesn't bother me. Doesn't make it treif. He sat in front of the Rav. First he checked the outside, then he checked the inside. If there's skin on the outside and it's not punctured, I don't care about the inside. If the nerve system becomes liquefied, that's a treif. Nismasmes, pasul. And also if it became soft, pasul. What does it mean? We have pictures over here, boys like geschmack. We'll give you an appetite. This is liquefied. Check this out, great picture. This guy is holding a spinal cord straight, but if it's soft, it's going to flop over. That is treif. What if it can't stand on its own because it's heavy, not because it's damaged? My teiko. And one more line over here, maybe more. What do we have? Oh, we have 30 seconds. Not good. Now we're using a new lashon with a zayin. Nismazmez means that it emptied out on its own. Kosher. Some of the nerve system emptied out. It's kosher. An animal that its brain, that its spinal cord became nismazmez is treif. Says Gemara, you learned it wrong. in this masmas. In this masmas, if it lost a little bit, then it's kosher. If it became masmas means that it can't stand on its own, it became soft, then that's treif. Any Levi Havi Yosef. Rabbi says story and a video. Listen to this. Levi was sitting in Beis HaMerchatz. Yavi Yosef Masuso. Chazo Gavra, the Tayir L'Reish Nebach, a guy slipped on the water, banged his head right into the wall. Omar, this guy's brain just lost a little bit of his brain. So the Gemara says, Lav D'Leichai doesn't mean, he said it used the Zayin, and it seems like that he's not going to live. Why else would he say this? He's like, oh, Nebuch, this guy's not going to live. Or this guy's not going to be able to have children anymore. Why? Because he's got a bang in his brain. Have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDY.com.